Hey, welcome to an episode of Crippled by Culture, where we talk about everything in life and relate it to the disability and chronically ill community. My name is Sean Gold, and I am an author, advocate, and nonverbal public speaker for the disability community. To provide a quick visual description for accessibility, I'm a Black man with a white tracheostomy tube, breathing tube in my neck. I'm wearing a Black shirt. This video is of a Zoom call with me and the person talking for me in one box off screen, and my guest is in the other box below it. Today, I would like to thank Adam Ross for being my voice in this episode. In this episode, we are talking about the intersections of life with cerebral palsy and embracing the social model of disability versus the medical model of disability.
Before we get any further into the interview, I want to give a shout out to our partnering nonprofit festival for the series, Festability. As a board member, I helped put together a wonderful event in St. Louis at the Missouri History Museum. We had so many activities and vendors set up all over with an amazing headliner for our main stage. Getting to do this event was a dream come true. It is the best event in St. Louis to celebrate your disability unapologetically. Make sure you come out later this year. More information will be available soon. Thank you Festability for sponsoring the series. Now, back to the show.
Now, let's get to today's amazing guest. Victoria Wheeler is a 32-year-old woman who was born prematurely with an official diagnosis of spastic diplegia, cerebral palsy, within my first year. She had SDR surgery at the age of 4. She is a full-time wheelchair user. She's even college educated with a degree in Spanish. She is developing a passion for disability advocacy and activism, as well as handmade art and crafting. Victoria, thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
How are you doing?
I'm all right.
Good.
A little bit nervous. Good.
Yeah. Okay, that's okay. Hey, we will, it's going to be good.
Yeah.
So we're just so glad you're here. Would you mind giving a visual description of yourself, please?
I am a white woman seated in a wheelchair. I am wearing purple headphones and a black top. And let's see. Oh, I also have glasses. I am seated in the corner of a room at a desk for this interview.
I appreciate that. First, do you identify with having a disability or chronic illness?
Yes.
How does your disability affect your everyday life?
Oh, that's a loaded question. Well, I am what I would consider to be like a mid-support needs disabled person. I am fairly mobile, like around the house in a walker, but to go long distances and like anywhere outside of the house, I am a full-time wheelchair user, and I do need assistance with like activities of daily living, ADLs, for those who know, but not as much as other people need. I often feel like I'm disabled, but also not disabled enough.
Very relatable. And do you feel like there are other things going on that you feel are not diagnosed?
I suspect that I am somewhere on the autism spectrum. I remain like a self-diagnosed autistic after going through an official diagnosis process and then telling you that I wasn't in fact on the spectrum. I've considered going back in a few years to get reassessed, but that's, to be determined.
Gotcha. Did you have to go through your own internalized ableism?
Oh, definitely. I would say that, I grew up in a family that was like well-meaning. I grew up in a family where no other person in like my extended family, my dad and his sisters and like my cousins and aunts and uncles, none of them have a physical visible disability. Some of them are neurodiverse, some of them have ADHD, but nobody else was physically disabled. So I didn't grow up a lot around a lot of disabled folks. And I was in mainstream classes in school, and I just kind of grew up with this mindset that like I can do anything I put my mind to. And no, I'm not disabled because I'm smart and this and that. And I had to contend with like, you can be smart and you can be like capable of doing things that other disabled people cannot do, but you in fact are still disabled, and that's okay. Like it took me probably the better part of 26, 27 years, I'm 32 now, to like come to terms with the fact that, hey, I'm disabled and that's perfectly fine.
Absolutely, yeah. And if you don't mind, can you explain what the SDR surgery is?
Um,
And
sorry, go ahead.
oh no, actually that's good. Just starting with what the surgery is.
From my understanding, because I had it when I was so young and it was within the first round of those types of surgeries done in the country, it stands for selective dorsal rhizotomy, and they cut rootlets out of my spine to help improve my muscle control and like reduce spasticity in my muscles. I have most spasticity in my legs. That's the limbs that are affected by the cerebral palsy, and I have more in my hands and arms, but less in my legs. So that helped with, like I said, spasticity and trunk control and posture. My mom said that before the surgery, I had a hard time even sitting up on my own, like unassisted.
Yeah, what would you tell patients and their parents considering the surgery?
I've thought about that for a long time, and I don't really know, honestly, because I didn't know too much. I wasn't given much detail about it being so young. So I'd have to sit down and think about that one.
Very
Because
under
I do follow an Instagram account run by a mom whose kid had SDR also at the age of 4. And she kind of advocates for her daughter and like connects with other parents and gives her advice on like therapies to participate in and whether or not they would consider the surgery. So she's the person that I would talk to. I don't really know much about it. I just know that I had it done. I wish I did know more. Maybe I should learn about it.
We both have CP. Would you mind going into detail what specific type you have and how it affects you, since it's different for everyone?
Yeah. I have my official diagnosis, like I put in the bio, is spastic diplegia. Spastic diplegia is where you have either hypotonic or hypertonic muscles, meaning like either really low muscle tone or really high muscle tone. Everything causes spasticity, and the diplegia means 2 limbs are affected. So for me, I have hypertonia in my legs. I do not walk unassisted. Some people with spastic diplegia can walk unassisted, but I use a walker for short distances, like I was saying. And outside of the house, I save a lot of time and energy by using a power chair, which is really nice. I'm very fortunate to be able to have that. Let's see. And what I've noticed as I've gotten older is it affects my arms and hands and like my fine motor skills a lot more than I originally thought it did. Like when I was younger and in school, I would write a lot slower than the other kids, and I had trouble doing things like cutting out pieces of paper and drawing in a straight line. And I didn't know that I needed like accommodation for these things. But as I got older and learned, like in middle school and high school and college even, I was like, hey, you know, I might need extra time, or I might need someone to help me with this part of the assignment because I can't do it on my own.
Yeah. What do you think we have to fight against as
Oh,
stereotypes about CP?
the well, the first thing that comes to my mind is the fact that just because we have a disability doesn't mean we're not intelligent, that we're not capable of learning or communicating, especially. I know like several people in my life and some that I would like to be closer to, but I'm not. They they believe that. They have their own um internalized ableism there. And I don't think it's a conscious thing, but it's definitely still there. Like just because I speak about my experience as a disabled person and a person with CP doesn't mean that that's the experience of like every disabled person or every person with CP.
Absolutely, yeah. And now your involvement in the disability community. Can you first define the differences between the social and medical model of disability?
Oh, wow. Okay. So I actually learned this from what I don't know if you follow her, but the influencer Molly Burke. She has retinitis pigmentosa and she's blind. Um, she did a whole YouTube video about the medical versus social model of disability. And when she was growing up, she was for the medical model and like finding a cure for her disease, which is nearly impossible to do. But as she's grown older and learned to accept herself, she supports the social model. The medical model is that every disability is a condition that is, I'll put this in air quotes, bad and needs to be fixed and cured and things like that. Like that our disability is the problem. We are the problem. The social model of disability takes into account that like we're just humans who happen to be disabled and that, you know, accommodations for our disabilities could make the world better. Like it's the lack of accommodations that make the world inaccessible. Like we are not bad or wrong for having a disability. It's just another part of like the human condition, as they say.
Yeah, definitely. And, while it's probably obvious to the both of us, which is more appropriate to use, but can you go into a little bit as to why one is more appropriate over the other?
I think the social model of disability um, is most appropriate because it reminds us that disabled people are people first and that we deserve to be treated with, you know, dignity and respect, and that we're not the burden that we often see ourselves as or are told that we are.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Um, can you tell me about the ableism you've personally faced with the medical treatment?
Mm, not so much. I'm trying to think of in like the medical field, the ableism I've experienced. It's not been so much like with my CP diagnosis, like, oh, you don't look like you have CP, because obviously that's very clear from looking at me because I do use a wheelchair. You know, I don't walk. It's more so like in recent years when I have brought up the, you know, like I think I have autism. I think I'm an autistic person. And the number one response I get from every medical professional that I have told that to is, oh, well, you don't look autistic. And I'm like, okay, well, what is autistic supposed to look like? Like,
Right.
yeah, like there's been a lot of research done on how autism presents much differently in, you know, females and like and AFAB people. it's like wildly underdiagnosed in us. You know, the autism criteria was developed for white males.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's more so like on the autism side, but on the CP side, I can't really, just because it's so apparent, I can't really recognize any ableism that I have dealt with in the medical community. Now, like socially, definitely, but not really for medical professionals.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people can, a lot of autistic people, right, can relate to that experience of, being invalidated or being told like, hey, you don't seem autistic enough, and yeah, that's a real problem.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. So how would it help us, as a disabled and chronically ill community, for doctors, more doctors to embrace looking at disability through the social model of disability instead?
Quite honestly, I think it would kind of restore our trust in doctors for the most part, because what I hear mostly is that a lot of disabled people have come to distrust medical professionals because they feel gaslit. They don't feel heard or seen or understood. Like they're told that their problems are all in their head, specifically if you have like a chronic illness, not just a disability, but like a chronic illness. Like your pain and your suffering is not really believed. So I feel like if people in the medical field, doctors, nurses, what have you, um, started like embracing the social model of disability, like we would trust them more. But I have a hard time thinking of and articulating like how they could do that, because that's what medical school is. Like they're only taught that, disability is a medical thing. So I wouldn't really know how to begin going about like throwing the social model into like medical school studies, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, and that is the question, right? Is how can we um impart that information to the medical schools and to make that a standard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and so, okay, so what kind of advocacy do you do? Is it specific, does it focus only on disability, or do you also include other intersections as well?
Right now it's very little. It's few and far between. Like I'm trying to get myself used to doing interviews and podcasts like this one. Um, it's definitely a new experience, but I don't hate it. Like I think it's good for me and good for other people too. I mostly focus on disability just because there's not really, I'm a woman, but other than that, like I don't really meet any other like intersectional criteria.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, tell me about the homemade art and crafting. What do you do?
Okay. So I figured out a few years ago, I don't know if you have seen on like social media, but there is like something called gem painting. It's only come about in the past like 10 years or so. Like they're little plastic or resin like gems that you stick to a canvas. Like it's a glue poured canvas and you just make a picture. Like it's like cross stitching, but it's like cross stitching with paint by number. It's a very relaxing hobby if you have like a lot of anxiety because it's just like repetitive. I like it. It's very nice. So I figured out that I like that and I'm good at it. So I was like, what if I could, print these pictures, make these patterns, make these canvases myself, which I'm in the process of learning how to do, and then like, make um paintings of like people's pets. Like people send me their photographs, I get them printed on a canvas. I have this pattern in front of me and I complete the project and sell it to them, or they buy it from me. I just think it's
Yeah,
really cool. It's
I love that.
it's different than a photograph. I mean, it is a photograph, but it's got a little extra layer to it. If you
Yeah.
like things, that's the way to go.
Yeah. And so what motivates you to craft? Would you say, is it a hobby? Is it, to make a living? Is it to cope with anything? What motivates you?
It's all of the above. It's a really nice hobby. Like, my partner actually is on the board of our local like maker space here in Knoxville. And so he's big into arts and crafts, and he kind of got me started in like finding arts and crafts activities that I would like. And I was like, hi, I'm really good at this. And this kind of distracts me in a healthy way from everything I've got going on mentally. So it helps me cope with anxiety, and I'm pretty good at it, and it's fun. Um, and like, I just wanted to do something different than what I had gone to school for. Like, I still love Spanish, and I love being bilingual, and the people that's given me the chance to meet, and like the things I know about different cultures because of it. But it keeps me in my head, if that makes sense. Like, this gets me out of my head and like forces me to do something to like kind of like get out all of the mental energy that I have going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are your favorite art projects that you do?
I Like I said, I'm trying to finish up some more gem paintings, and I like to kind of fiddle around with like perler beads. I don't know if you've heard of them, but I mean, probably most people around our age did this as a kid. Like, you put beads on a board and you iron them, and they make like into a certain shape or pattern.
Mm,
They like fuse together.
yeah, I love that. So what are the most accessible art projects that you do?
That's like, I would say that the perler beads are the most accessible because um, I like the gem painting, but it is very tedious after a while, and it can kind of wear out your hands if you have reduced fine motor skills like I do. Um, but the perler beads are a little bigger, and I can just use tweezers and like set them on the board and make my pattern, make my shape, make whatever I need, and then have it ironed and completed. And I don't know, I've looked up a lot of internet things like patterns and seen other people do like big projects on their channels. Kind of where I draw inspiration from. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Um, yeah, that sounds so cool. Can you, if you are comfortable and you have them handy, can you show us examples and describe them for visual description accessibility?
I don't have them with me right now.
Mhm.
Um, would you like me to send descriptions of them and send pictures of them?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Okay, I can do that after the interview if that's okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Um, yeah. How long does each project take you?
Oh, it depends on the size. Like, if it's a small perler project, I can't like just a single shape. I can get it done in like 30 to 45 minutes. The larger projects will take a few days, and then the small gem painting canvases, I've done ones that are designed for kids. It's just like a 6 inch by 6 inch square with a design, and that took me about 5 hours. So, and what they call a full drill canvas, where the whole canvas is covered in gems, um, not just part of the canvas. Like, that can take so long. It depends on like the strength of your hands and
Mm,
which you work and the tools that you use, because there are different tools for that too. Like, there's a single placer pen where you place one tiny gem at a time, and then there's multi placers that come in like 3 or 6 or 9, so you can lay down like multiples at a time, which speeds things up a little bit. But yeah, I would say, like, the websites that sell them and advertise them say that if it's your first time gym painting, it'll probably take you like 30 to 45 hours. It,
Oh
it's,
yeah. Wow.
it's worth it. It's really satisfying to see something finished that is like that detailed.
Definitely. Yeah. Especially, you spend so much time and energy on it. At the end of it, yeah, I can imagine it's very satisfying.
Yeah,
Mm. Do you consider your craft and arts to be like OT for you? And for those who don't know, OT in the disability community is occupational therapy.
I do. Yeah, and I often commented, like, I actually have a friend who's a physical therapist, and her mom's an occupational therapist. I was like, I wish we'd had this around as an OT exercise when I was a kid, like, 20, 25 years ago. But I was like, I don't want to learn to zip a zipper or tie my shoes. I want to learn to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, like something a little more fun than like learning to tie your shoes. That was really hard and really boring for me because I would often miss out on like recess to go to OT. I don't really know how that happened, but I wasn't a happy camper. OT was not my favorite.
Do you ever think about ways that you can connect your artistry with your advocacy?
I have been brainstorming this for the better part of like a year, and I haven't quite arrived at it yet.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
bet once you figure it out, it's gonna be so good.
yeah,
Because yeah, combining, yeah, just the being able to combine your passions,
that's
very,
like an goal.
yeah, for sure. Well, is there anything else that I didn't talk about that you would like to discuss?
Not off the top of my head. I'm mentally reminding myself now to send you photos of my project.
Much appreciated. Cannot wait to check them out.
Cool.
Yes. Oh, and I did want to ask you a little bit about your degree in Spanish because I'm taking Spanish for one semester, for one last semester in college. And I'll be definitely asking for help. But why was a Spanish degree important to you?
When I was in, I think, my freshman year of high school, towards the end of the year, I just decided that I was going to go on from Spanish 2 to Spanish 3 because Spanish 3 and 4 were like honors level courses and you got extra points on your GPA for them. I was like, I'll just do that to satisfy my like graduation requirements and boost my GPA. I didn't know that I was going to be really good at it. And I was like, hey, I'm really good at this. And my Spanish teacher, even outside of Spanish, like we are friends now, and he's one of my biggest supporters in basically anything that I do. It's pretty great. But he, encouraged me to go to college and to study Spanish as a degree and to consider work as an interpreter or translator. And
Yeah.
that, yeah, it was a really big part of my life for a really long time, and it still is, but it's making its way to the side. Like I'll never put it down completely, but it's just not in the forefront right now.
Yeah. And do you have any insights that you can share about what it's like for disabled people in Spanish cultures, and what laws are in place to protect disabled individuals?
I do not know much about the legal things. I actually had a really great opportunity to study abroad in Spain in the summer of 2011, and I did meet a couple of people there, a couple of now women who use wheelchairs. And if I didn't have them, I don't know that I would have made friends as much as I did. Like they were the first people to see me and like welcome me into their groups, and like they were like my catalyst for meeting other people and making other friends there who were all able-bodied, but still like it was just one of those moments where like you see another person in a wheelchair in public and you're like, hello, I see you. Maybe I'll come over and talk to you to make things a little less scary. So I'm really grateful for them. And they, like me, had also gone through like one or multiple degree programs. I know my first friend over there, she's a wheelchair user. She has her doctorate, and now she works at a hospital in Barcelona as like a biomedical something or other. Like, she's incredibly intelligent and like gifted in the sciences. But I don't know too much about the laws as far as disability goes over there. I just know that it's not the most accessible place for sure. I would say that has even, the US has its faults, but I would say that Spain has an even longer way to go as far as like disability law goes and the accessibility of places.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And my last question for you is, what is something that you've learned from the disability community or a specific disabled person that sticks with you?
I'd say just generally overall, not from one specific person, but especially in the DLC, the general tone is like, it's okay to be disabled. Like, you are not less of a person for being disabled. I think your life starts to get a lot easier when you can accept and even embrace like the parts of you that you couldn't before. And for me, that is being a disabled person. So yeah, it's okay to be disabled.
Yeah, that's such an important and often, so often overlooked fact, that, yeah, it is okay to be disabled. It's very human, actually. Well, thank you so much for coming on and having this conversation with me.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hope you have enjoyed it as much as I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate all the insights that you provided. And if people wanted to connect with you and support the work that you do, where can they do so?
So far I'm working on multiple platforms, but the one that is most developed is my Instagram. It is at the.disabled.diamond.painter. The disabled diamond painter with dots in between every word. I will also type that out in a message when I send over those photos.
Much appreciated. And yes, I will make sure to share everything in my description below. Yeah. Once again, I'm Sean Gold. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like, comment all your thoughts, and subscribe. I'll see you all next time on another episode of Crippled by Culture.